Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stand Alone, where we go over and have conversations with experts in their fields. What does it mean to be able to stand alone? It means that you take leadership over your life. It means that you are a person that wants to have control. And I can't think of a better guest. Sarah Hiner has been 4 decades of experience in the healthcare world. And now she's going on to a new adventure in diving into happiness, the connection between the mind, body, and our emotions. And especially today, where a lot of people are having a lot of difficulty, in their private life, it's so important that you understand that there's a lot of help available to you. And so today I wanted to invite Sarah to have a conversation about why health is so important. Sarah, in the past, you've been the CEO of Bottom Line Inc. You have a podcast, Bottom Line Advocator, and you're a real big advocator of people advocating for their own health instead of just falling into the traditional healthcare system. So I want to talk about both things today because, Sarah, for our audience of high achievers, a lot of us, we are just gung-ho about making money. And we absolutely sacrifice our health by any means necessary to get ahead, sometimes until it's too late. And so this is why I wanted to have this conversation with our audience today about how important your health is and how to get in front of it so that you are living a life where you are in control instead of being controlled and then finding yourself in a situation where you're just slowly slipping into a system that kind of overtakes your destiny. We don't want that to happen. So I have a question for you. What initially got you involved in the health and wellness space?
Well, it's actually two things. First of all, Bottom Line was a publisher. They still are a publisher. We simply sold the company about 3 years ago. But about 80% of our information was health related. And the whole premise of Bottom Line, and as I said, Bottom Line still exists. You can go to bottomlineinc.com and go subscribe. It's a fabulous publication. And it was all about giving people the information they needed to be able to make the decisions in their lives. We would go to experts and get their firsthand recommendations. And we could never compete with the news industry because the cycle time was so fast. But we could do what was called, I called the second story. So there's a new vaccine that got introduced. The feds changed the interest rates, whatever it is, and we couldn't beat the news cycle on it. But we could say, what does it mean to you? What do you need to think about? What are the questions you need to ask? So we would go straight to the experts to get that kind of information. So I grew up in an environment of self-advocacy, of asking questions, of going straight to the experts, and in understanding a lot of the health, what was going on within the health industry. And the nice thing was that I talked to everybody across the spectrum. I talked to mainstreamers, I talked to natural people, and I could see across the spectrum without we were what I called free from the influence of advertising. We didn't have advertisers. So we could say anything. I didn't have to worry about if I wanted to talk about the dangers of acid suppressing medications, and I'll bet there's a whole lot of people in your audience taking a whole lot of acid suppressing medications. I could talk about that all day long without worrying about whether Nexium was going to pull their advertising from my magazine. So which gave us a grand amount of freedom to advocate for our readers rather than worrying about and being beholden to the advertisers. So that was piece one. From a business point of view, I was utterly surrounded by that industry and expert information. Piece two, I was a lot like a lot of your clients. I was type A, very driven, work. I grew up, as I fondly say, a product of the 60s. So I grew up on Pop-Tarts and Fruit Loops. My diet was horrible. Got to college, we had the world's best baker at my college. I'd eat 3 donuts for breakfast. The microwaves were just coming in. I'm totally dating myself, but like microwaves were coming in, and we'd take provolone cheese and we'd have these fresh loaves of Italian bread, and horrible, like everything that you shouldn't eat, I lived on. It was disgusting. Well, it caught up with me in my mid-30s, and I ended up actually in the emergency room with, believe it or not, I'm now 34 years old. I've always exercised. I have chest pains, and I've got hives from head to toe. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And I had 2 young kids. I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old at home at that point. Stressful job, working too hard, et cetera, et cetera. And I get to the emergency room, and the doctors go, hi, here's Benadryl. here's prednisone, because they give you steroids the minute you have any kind of crazy inflammation. Here's Xanax, and here is the phone number of a psychiatrist. Your heart is fine. Go deal with your stress and anxiety. That's what their diagnosis was. And I went away. They put me on more prednisone. I never take drugs. I just didn't, I was generally healthy. So they gave me a prescription of prednisone that was more than my body could handle. They took me off of it quickly. No one told me don't drink caffeine when you're taking prednisone. So I'm driving home one night. I'd had a Diet Coke or something, and I suddenly have this huge panic attack. Never had anything like that before. Anyway, the minute I would stop taking the prednisone, my hives would come back. It fixed nothing whatsoever. And my doctors would say, get rid of your dog because you have a collie, you're allergic to it. Just go talk to the psychiatrist. I'd talk to the psychiatrist. I'd say, I'm not going to wake up and tell you that I was suddenly, I remember I was molested when I was 3 years old. That's not going to happen. What's with my angst, right? I don't know, 50 minutes are up, just keep talking. Oh, and do you want Zoloft because maybe you're depressed?
Oh my God.
Like, pill. My father, who had actually founded the company, bottom line, and was connected to all sorts of fascinating humans, put me in touch. He had a friend who had something that nobody could figure out what was wrong with her, and she had been with a naturopathic physician. I got in touch with the naturopathic physician, and he was the first human who could give me real answers. And what happened really was that through my diet, through my stress, through my lack of sleep, through all of that, through processing things in an unhealthy way, thoughts, etc., I had beaten my body down. All of my scores, my hormones were low. My cholesterol was actually way too low. Everything was. And he was the first person that opened my eyes to the power of our bodies to heal and helping. If you do what your body needs and give it the tool, they're magical machines, but you have to give it the right kind of fuel. So 2 years later, through work, like understanding what it was, I had yeast overgrowth in my body, thanks to all the sugar that I'd grown up on. So 2 years later, no more hives, no more panic attacks, no prednisone, no Xanax, no nothing, but because I learned to build my body. So it was a wild awakening to the doctor's philosophy. And I promise you, drugs and surgery have done some miracles for many people. But, a pharmaceutical company develops a drug, just like Nabisco developed a cookie, and they want to sell as many cookies as they can. So a pharmaceutical company develops a drug they want to sell as much as they can. Understood, except that they're expanding it to people that may or may not necessarily need it, except that we've all been spoiled to go, I hurt, give me a pill. How is that for this much answer to this much of a question?
Well, that's great. So it's good for the background. I think what's incredibly important is for us to first dissect what you said when you created this source of information to people, and you weren't under the hands of advertising companies. And I want us to really have people understand what that means, because we say this very fast, but you're heavily influenced by the information that's seeping into you. And then when you're seeing all these paid advertisements, we just think that they're okay because they're on TV, like they got past, some sort of test, but that's not necessarily true.
Right.
When we go to the doctor, Sarah, this happened to me. I have 3 small children, and every time I was pregnant, I would go for my regular checkup, they would try to, inject me with something. And I would say to myself and to the doctor, like, what is that? What are you putting in me? And then they'd give me a pamphlet, and I'm like, I don't want that in me. And so what if I didn't have the courage to speak up for myself? So can you explain that relationship of what paid advertisers do, how that goes into the mainstream healthcare industry where doctors are just giving us stuff? And if we don't learn that we have every right to say no, we have every right to just say, I don't want that. What are my alternative ways that I can help myself? Can you explain that to our audience? Because a lot of us, and this, we just take for granted that these are professionals. We trust them blindly, and we just do what they say without understanding the repercussions of of saying yes and just accepting what they're giving to us?
Yes. So I mean that. Okay, let me unpeel it bit by bit by bit. First of all, the industry, as I said, everybody wants to sell more of their product.
Yes.
Pharmaceutical industry is no different, right? So they invest, they develop a pill, and they figure it out. So like, but sometimes like they develop a pill like Viagra was actually developed for, I think, blood pressure or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, for blood pressure, but they went, oh, look what else it does.
Mm-hmm.
And they morphed it, and suddenly they said, let's go sell it to all those men that are having erectile dysfunction, right? So they figure out ways to apply this stuff. And I don't remember the stats, America, something like we're the only country that allows direct to consumer pharmaceutical advertising. And yet, because Europe doesn't allow it, and yet we spend more on healthcare per capita than any other country. And we are sicker and fatter than any other country. So, and there's all sorts of, details out there in terms of the correlation between the increase in drugs and the decline in our health. And the increase, we won't get into a vaccine discussion, but it's because it's a very complex thing. I have my theories, but it's interesting to see the increase even in vaccines and the associated increase in other kinds of health challenges. So they talk about, I'll digress for a second. They talk about side effects. Side effects are not really side effects. Drugs do things to your body. They turn off a system and your body reacts and responds. So it does what it's targeted to do, but it also does other things. They're a chain reaction. So they're not side effects. They are effects of that drug. They do things to your body. If you suddenly choked off the blood in your arm, well, your body's going to react to it. So when you take it, I'll talk about acid suppressants again for a minute. If you take acid suppressing medications, you see the ads, eat whatever you want, never have a stomach ache, right? The PPIs stop your acid production. Okay, that's fine. You don't hurt because you don't have acid. You're also not digesting your food, right? Acid breaks down your food so you can digest your nutrients. So if you don't digest your food, you don't absorb your nutrients. You have other health issues. Acid also kills the germs. There are germs all over the place, including on food, on stuff you stick in your mouth. Acid actually kills those germs. If you don't have acid, you swallow things, you get sick, you get germs into your body. But no one talks about that because they just solve the problem of, I have a stomach ache, I get heartburn, and the doctor assumes if you shut up and don't complain anymore, you're fixed. You're not fixed. They've just cut off that piece of your body is really what's happening. So back to your question about the influence of the pharmaceutical industry. So they go direct to us consumers, and every marketer, your client, their business people market, right? So they come up with great slogans. They come up with great reasons why you absolutely positively have to buy this cookie, not that cookie, this insurance, not that insurance, this car, not that car. This is the sexy car. This is the whatever. Pharmaceuticals, it's promising you forever health, freedom to eat whatever you want. You won't hurt, whatever it is, avoidance of pain. Humans want to avoid pain and move toward pleasure. They also do that marketing direct to the doctors. So one of my first job interviews out of college was with the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I was a psychology major. My grades were fine. I went to a decent college, good college. And they wanted me at 22 years old to go knock on the door of doctors and tell them about my drugs. And this was the education for the doctors. Wow. That was how they were going to learn about it. Because and at that time, that was now 40 years ago, I'll date myself, 40 years ago, where there were, I'll call it these many drugs. Now there are these many drugs. The doctors can't keep up with that information. They can't keep on top of it. So they learn about it from the pharmaceutical salespeople, who are very lovely and very charming, and take them out to lunch. And they bring platters of cookies. I took a picture a couple of years ago. I had to go to the doctor's office for something, my rare trip to the doctor's office. And there's a huge platter of cookies in the waiting room. Hi, let me give you poison. Well, not that there's eat a cookie every so often, right? Here, platter of cookies at the doctor's office. Half of them are diabetic, right? But let me give you cookies. So the doctors are learning. It's like the proverbial fox guarding the hen house, because the salespeople are teaching the doctors about their product. Of course it's safe. Well, what about, I heard about this? Oh, that doesn't happen very often. So it really is beholden on consumers to know your body and know what makes sense. Back to, can you ask the questions? Because I'd say, well, you need to do the research on whether it's good or bad. We are all beholden to Google, right? So during COVID, there was so much, and I'm not going to say pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine, ivermectin, any of that, but you couldn't get all the information because it's controlled also by the pharmaceutical companies, by the government that wanted everyone, they wanted to beat this pandemic. So they wanted everyone to take the vaccine. So you can't necessarily trust the information that you're getting on things. So you have to be beholden to ask the doctors the question and to know that it's your body, it's your test results, it's your, what are you comfortable with, right? If they tell you something, anytime somebody, you have to ask why. Why are you recommending this? Why this drug, not that drug? And they'll say, well, this is the new one. Okay, well, how much experience do you have with it? What's your experience? Well, the pamphlet says so and so. What is your experience in using it? Tell me about that. Because they are repeating what they are told. So you need to say why. Why this, not that? Why is this happening this way? Why, why that protocol? Is there something else I could do? Is there something I could do that's less invasive? Is there something I could do before I can take the drugs? Constant question to get to their truth. So when I was pregnant, I was in my early 30s. I was just on the cusp of needing an amnio, of being high risk because of my age. And the doctor was reticent. I wanted an amnio because I personally wanted to know if I needed to prepare myself emotionally for a challenge, a problem that a child might have. And the doctor was reticent to give me the amnio because he said, there's a risk of it. There's a risk to the fetus. There's a risk to you. And I said, okay, well, that's the reported risk. Tell me about your experience and your risk, which was a very different statistic.
Yeah.
So you always have to understand carefully what they're saying and where their information is coming from. So did I answer too much?
No, I think this is so important for people to really pay attention to asking the right questions, and then also saying to yourself, I'm allowed to walk away from this. I'm allowed to take some time and think about it and then come back, instead of just falling into the path that they're paving for us and then having regrets later on that you can't undo. No. And so it's your body. You only have one body. Take care of it and be an advocate for it, because no one can care about your body more than you. And so I love that we're talking about this, because I don't think a lot of people know exactly what to ask. And then when they're with a professional, Sarah, we're just intimidated because
we are.
You're the one that has all these degrees. You went to medical school. You have all these years of experience, and I should be able to trust you. But at the end of the day, you've spent more years with your body. And what we're learning in science and health is that we all react differently to different drugs because of our microbiomes, because of just many different things systematically that are going on. Yep. So I think this message of being an advocate and knowing your body is really, really important.
Well, and also let me say also, don't forget, two pieces of it. First of all, we all get intimidated by our doctors. As you said, they're the experts. But now you're in an environment where you're lucky if the doctor gives you 4.2 minutes of their time.
Wow.
So you feel bad, right? You feel guilty. It used to be country doctor came in, they sat down, they asked about you, your spouse, your kids, the family, the dog, they knew you, right? Yeah. And now they don't. You are slam bam, thank you, ma'am. And you are grateful to get an ounce of attention from them. Yeah. So you feel guilty if you have to ask a question. They're clearly rushed. They're looking at their watch. They're typing into their computer. They're not even looking at you whatsoever. Yeah. So, but you're the customer. If you're the customer when you're buying a couch, you're the customer when you're at a hotel, and you're the customer at the doctor's office. And don't forget that part of it. Now, I'll also say on the flip side, in spite of the fact that doctors are rushed, use a big word, they're abused. doctors don't want to behave that way either. They're beholden to the insurance companies and to the hospitals that hire them. So they're trying the best that they can to do it, but they have to do the party line. They're not allowed to necessarily say, I think this drug isn't great, but the hospital thinks I need to, that's the protocol. That's the agreed upon thing, right there, that you got to ask them and read their bodies and watch what's going on there, because they also are not, they're trying to keep their jobs, a lot of them, honestly. So they are not necessarily free to speak so clearly. So funny story. Can I chatter a little more?
Yeah, for sure.
So funny story. My husband had COVID this week. Where he got it, I don't know, germ, because we were all just kind of among ourselves in our house. Anyway, so he goes and he takes a home test and it comes up positive. And I was out and about. He texted me and said it came up positive. I said, okay. Meanwhile, the minute he started feeling symptoms a couple of days earlier, I started giving him all my supplements, all my immune boosting protocols of what the natural world talks about in terms of strengthening your body. Zinc is important for rhinoviruses and things like that.
What is your cocktail that you use now? Like if you feel something coming on, what is your go-to to inoculate yourself and protect yourself as much as you can naturally?
So I use vitamin D. Everyone should be taking vitamin D all the time. D, crucial in terms of your immune system function. There's actually, if you go onto YouTube to the Bottom Line YouTube page, I did an interview with a guy named Michael Hollick, who's one of the top experts in vitamin D. Even if you're outside all the time, we are all deficient in D, and it's absolutely vital for all sorts of disease protection, including cancers, right? So vitamin D. Vitamin C, oddly, is very helpful for just respiratory infections. Zinc is important for rhinoviruses. So, which is COVID is a rhinovirus. And interestingly, so one of the side effects or one of the symptoms of having COVID is that you lose your sense of taste and smell. That's what happens when you're zinc deficient, because your body uses up the zinc to fight the disease. So zinc is important. Something called NAC, N-acetylcysteine, is an important immune boosting thing. That's a precursor to a super powerful antioxidant in your body called glutathione. It's hard to supplement glutathione, but NAC helps your body produce glutathione. And then I have, I can name a brand that I take. This was suggested to me from my naturopath. It's a kind of immune boosting supplement, herbs, minerals, things like that. It's called Vitabiotic, and it's by a company called Eclectic Institute. And you can find it. You can buy it online. I buy it from Amazon. And I take those regularly, one or two of them a day. When at the first sign of sickness, I will increase my Vitabiotics. I will increase my NAC. I don't generally increase D heavily. Vitamin C, you can take as much as you can stand. You'll just pee out whatever you don't need. Zinc, you can increase for a while. You don't want to stay on high doses of zinc, but if you get sick, if you have COVID, then they'll say to take 50 milligrams of it for, while you're symptomatic, and then ease back off of it. Usually it's 15 milligrams a day is the standard. So that's my basic one. Quercetin is a natural antihistamine, and that can help if you've got, you're all mucousy and you've got, kind of runny nose and coughs and stuff like that. Those are the biggies. That's the basic.
That's awesome.
So anyway, so my husband takes this home test and it comes up positive. So he texts me again and says, I'm going to urgent care. And I said, why? And he said, well, to confirm that I've got it. It's not you can't have a false negative. You can't have a false positive. You can have a false negative, but not a false positive. Nonetheless, he goes off to urgent care, sits around for a while. They tell him, we don't need to test you again. And then the question became, should they give him a prescription for remdesivir or Paxlovid, which are the two prescription drugs that got developed recently. There's debate about whether remdesivir is effective or not. And there's debate about Paxlovid. The knock on Paxlovid is that it will reduce your symptoms, and then you'll often have a second wave of being sick. So you get better, then you get sick again, right? So that's the knock on Paxlovid. So I said, if it were me, I wouldn't take them because neither of them necessarily do anything. And viruses, they do their way. If you get through the flu, as long as you don't have other serious illnesses in your body or serious vulnerabilities,
right?
Again, our bodies are magical healing machines, right? So assuming you're generally strong and you're boosting your immune, you're doing what you fluids and sleep and all that sort of stuff. Taking these drugs is just suppressing symptoms. They're not necessarily beating the virus. So he comes home, and then he's gotten the prescription for Paxlovid, gets a call from the pharmacist who says, we're out of stock of it, but do you want me to call, send the prescription somewhere else? And he says, well, what do you think of it? And she proceeds to say exactly what I said, which is, well, it doesn't really help. It suppresses it, and then it comes back to you again. He goes, well, what would you do? And then she proceeds to say, well, if it were me, I would take vitamin D, vitamin C, NAC. So it's, funny, but the doctors, they're giving the party line that they're told to give, right? That's, so you have to, kind of, again, know your body and not be afraid to ask them their experience with it, right? Mm-hmm. Are you having success with it? Somebody with my issues, right? If I'm generally healthy, do I need it? If I'm 95, you might treat it differently, right? If I've got asthma, you might deal with it differently. So anyway, there's my funny,
No, I think that's the thing about the healthcare system. There's different people that you can talk to too. It just doesn't stop with the doctor. There's other healthcare professionals that you can speak to. What are your thoughts on telehealth medicine? Like if we wanted a second opinion, or if we have a doctor that we're comfortable with and we build a relationship, what are your thoughts on getting a second and third opinion? What is your experience with telehealth? How is that, like, are you hearing positive feedback from customers using that?
So I think it could be great. It's funny, telehealth was all the rage 3 years ago, right? And that was going to explode. And from what I understand, it's kind of backed off now a little bit, which is surprising to me, right? I think telehealth has great advantages, especially for a second and third opinion. Keep in mind, if you get an X-ray on something and it gets read, the radiologist is not next door. The radiologist can be across the country or around the world. They're not reading your results nearby. Mm-hmm. So if you get your test, you get your blood test, you get whatever it is, or you talk to them, then I think it's very effective because, I think you always need a second opinion. If you're thinking about surgery, if you've got a significant diagnosis, absolutely get second opinions, get third opinions till you're comfortable that either you're getting consistent messaging, or if you get, two people that say something different, get a third. Where do you get your, who do you go to for these second opinions? Often ask around, ask your friends and family who have had similar kinds of things, because people that you trust, you can Google and find whoever the leaders are in those areas. There are a lot of actually Facebook groups. Facebook, I have a lot of things about social media, but my husband in particular is involved in Facebook in a lot of groups that for special interest groups. Like he has a group that goes jeeping and saves people off the back of mountains when they get stuck. But he had a knee replacement a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of knowledge from the Facebook group about pre-surgery and post-surgery. And so there's shared knowledge. Whatever your ailment is, there's a lot of shared knowledge out there for good and for bad. I mean, again, take it all as information and run it through your filter of knowledge. But it's very hard to be able to make a decision in isolation. Now, let me also say, if you have anything more than like you're just going for your checkup, take someone with you. Never go to a doctor alone. If you're talking about something serious, surgery, a diagnosis, whatever, it's overwhelming. Someone needs to take notes, other questions that need to be asked. If you're elderly, take someone with you. If you are taking care of an elderly parent or sibling or someone, go with them. Never have them go to the doctor's office alone. Always be with them. Never let them be in the hospital alone. Always be with them, or, show up so that the hospital knows that you are there watching and making sure that they get the care that they need and the attention that they need. Medical really is self-advocacy. I mean, you just have to, kick, scream, and yell to be sure that you get what you need, and you get your questions answered. Now, let me flip it for a second. 60 to 80%, depending on who's counting and what you're counting, of our healthcare costs are self-induced due to our lifestyle choices. So we as humans, if you want to address the healthcare challenges and not be a victim of the healthcare world and not be reliant on prescription medications, then watch the choices that you're making about what you eat and how you move and how you think and what you do. Because we are giving ourselves heart disease, blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, you name it, the vast majority of our chronic illnesses. And I'll put cancer in a chronic illness because so much of it is kind of chronic. Like you can live for years and years and years with cancer or post-cancer. And even many cancers that unfortunately are far more serious, we've given to ourselves because of our lifestyle choices. So somewhere in the equation, we all need to take responsibility for what goes into our bodies when we go to sleep, the amount of liquor that we consume, the way, and now, we'll talk later about my happiness program, the way we think and view the world and what that does to the inflammation in our bodies.
Yeah, I think, going back to your initial story, if everyone can remember this, when you're young, we just abuse our bodies so much and then nothing happens because it's a young body and it's really good at just, taking the abuse. I always give the kidneys as an example to everyone. Like your kidneys can run off of like 7% of functioning capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it dips below, it'll drop you to your knees and
Right.
you're just finished because
and you're done. Right.
Yeah. And there's this point of no return. And
Right.
so if everyone can remember like your story of, you're microwaving this bread, putting cheese on it, and you're enjoying it until that point where now you're in the hospital and it's scary. And now you need to have someone with you because that moment when you're sitting with a doctor and they're telling you like you're not okay, people need to think about that when they are okay, because there's no such thing as it not having an effect on us. And this stuff builds up with time. And so I
Right.
love what you're saying about your choices, because the sooner we can get this education, then the sooner we can make better choices. And just because someone else is making different choices and they're not getting the effects that you're getting, it doesn't mean it's okay for them either. Like,
It's totally good. Right.
yeah. So
Right.
for us to have this awareness, I think that's what's incredibly important. And I wanted to shift into what you're doing now, because you have this program called Awakening Happiness. And I love this because when, listen, for me in business, people, when they talk about happiness, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Like, just
Let's
get
all
to
be
work.
happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, just plow through it. Okay.
Yep.
But it's deeper than that. And that's
Yep.
like your work is about going deeper. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because it's about the connection between the mind, the body, and the emotions. And, so I do a lot of work with the Navy SEALs. And when they talk to us about just understanding that your body is so strong and your mind will actually fail you first before your body. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you can understand that there's a deep connection there, explain to us how this correlates, the mind, the body, the emotions, and how this affects happiness. And then we can talk about the program that you've designed to get people to make better choices, because everything is connected at the end of the day.
It is. And let me say a few things. I'm sitting there going, okay, wait, I can go in this direction, this direction, this direction. Which way do I go?
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, before I get to the mind-body connection, let me just say happiness is something different to everybody, but there's this pressure that happiness is doing cartwheels, or happiness is what all their Facebook pages look like, right? Perfect Christmas holiday, right? Perfect family photos. We're all on the beach on our vacation, right?
Meanwhile, it's straight chaos really going on.
Oh my God. When my girls were young, my husband's a photographer. When my girls were young, they were used to taking pictures and stuff. And they were young. We were heading to there was a school fundraiser to do a family photo. And they were like 5 and 8 or something little. And we're driving there, and the kids are pummeling each other, like claws out, cat fight, killing each other. Get out of the car, go in front of the photographer, camera goes up. Sweetest angels you have ever seen.
Oh, I know this very well.
They're so well trained, right? Anyway, so point being, there's this pressure to, be Facebook perfect, right? And have your Facebook happy family. And that's not what it's about. Nor is happiness about always being giddy. You don't necessarily jump out of bed and go, oh, great day, woohoo! I'm always, like, this is not about Susie cheerleader. Yeah. It's about defining what happy is for you. And a lot of it can be contentment. It's not always yippee skippy, right? But it's understanding what it means to you, like what really would make you happy, and define happy, right? And there's a lot of people in the world, there's so many books now on happiness and so many apps on happiness and all this stuff. And there's the part that says, the medical community, back to them, they're going to give you a drug to fix it, right? That you've got some hormonal imbalance, and let me go give you something so that you've got more of those hormones in your body. Well, those things work maybe 40 to 60% of the time. And oh, by the way, the doctors don't know why. And if it doesn't work, then they give you more or a different one. So there's fix it with a pill strategy. There's gratitude journal, meditate, exercise, all these tasks and these activities. If you do this, then you'll be happy. Then you'll feel better. I call those Band-Aids, because the way that they're presented, because yes, I can go meditate and I'll feel better for the day. And meditating is wonderful. It's very good for you in many, many ways. When it comes to happiness, so now back to mind-body connection, mind-body emotions. So as I said, our body is an amazing machine that understands how to function. And when you think a thought, your body kicks off chemical reactions in response to it. You get scared, fight or flight, and you release cortisol all over your body, which gives you strength and adrenaline, and done chronically gives you inflammation all over the place. That's why stress is bad for you, right? If you think a good thought, if a happy thought, then you can release positive hormones. So we have four what I call happy hormones. I'm not the first one to call them that provide positive feedback in your body. So when you can, if you exercise, you release endorphins. When you give a hug, when you connect with someone or touch, you release oxytocin. So dopamine is goal setting, like set a goal and achieve it. Then you release dopamine, which gives you this hit of like, ooh, I accomplished that. I feel good, feel proud. And serotonin, which is kind of a mood stabilizer. So all of those are kicked off by what you do, what you think, and then how you treat your body. So it doesn't just happen that when you get stressed, you get a headache, you get a stomach ache. Your body also reacts to all those thoughts because your body needs to survive. So what I've done in the happiness program is teach people to become very aware of their thoughts, because that's what starts it all. Like, what do you think? How do you act? And also, how do you react? I had a friend, I was driving with a friend one time, and she's a very reactive person. And we're driving along. The amount of times she was just flipping out because someone pulled in front of her in traffic. Okay, you really want to flip out over that? No. But we do that. We let that happen to ourselves. We play victim. We go, oh God, this happened, it's someone else's fault. My boss is a jerk, so my life sucks. So how we act, how we react causes our body to respond, release positive chemicals and positive reactions, or negative ones, which then feed back because they release the hormones, which then help you feel good and connected, or they help you feel tense, tired, irritated, etc. You then end up with physical pain in your body because if you have so much cortisol, that's creating inflammation and stomach aches and headaches and backaches and neck aches and whatever, you pick the pain, right? So that's the basic premise of, and I haven't seen anybody else that talks about it in these terms. They talk about, as I said, who's the guy that was with Google the Google like development group, and I forget the guy. He wrote a book. His son tragically died. And he had a formula because he was an engineer that happiness was the difference between your expectations and your reality. Okay, true. Got that. So, adjust. But everybody, they're giving you these little quick fixes. Do this, you'll be happy. Run every day, you'll be happy. Go on a diet, you'll lose weight. So this isn't a happiness diet. If you do these 3 things, you'll be happy. It's actually shifting and understanding the integration of our body and our thoughts and our emotions.
Yeah. In terms of just overall especially in the business world, a lot of people are grappling with this right now where, they're just quick to leave the company that they're at and go find happiness somewhere else. But I always tell people the problem with that is that you follow you everywhere you go.
Yes.
And then you're going to go to a different opportunity,
right.
but you're not a different person. And so
right.
I see that you have like a 21-day approach. Are you like working on rewiring someone, like creating habits, or is there a reason why it's 21 days? Like, why did you set it up that way?
So it's actually, I'll call it more an unpeeling and a rebuilding and understanding. So within there becomes habits, right? And it takes, I forget whatever the numbers of repetitions to create a habit. I don't talk about it in terms of retraining the habits. Honestly, the biggest thing to me is becoming self-aware, right?
Yes.
We become so unconscious of what we do and how we think, and that, the number of negative thoughts that we have a day and the number of judgments that we have a day, right? And we have gotten really good. So if you look, people go, oh God, I don't know how to be happy. Life's so hard. My life is hard. My husband is this, my wife is that, my boss is this. And we live as these victims being crushed in life. And it's hard right now. Things are expensive. You got to pay your bills. Adulting is hard, right? Being a grown-up is hard. Let alone the stresses of all that's going on in the world. We all know how to be happy. Our bodies know how to be happy. When we were babies, we were happy. Go to a park and watch a 2-year-old go, wee.
Yeah.
Had it in us. As we got older, it got squeezed out, right? The pressure to perform, the pressure to be accepted by the girls at the lunch table in middle school, the pressure to make the team, whatever it is. As we age, we get more serious, which we have to do. But with that comes the pressure, comes the cortisol, comes the judging, right? The self-judgment and the judgment of the world beyond. And it has become so unconscious, not even subconscious, just unconscious to us, that we have developed these habits of self-deprecation, negativity, being miserable. How many times have they ever produced good news shows and nobody watches it, right? We all want to watch a train wreck, right? There's so many different layers to that. But so we've become these masters at misery. So what I start out with people doing is just becoming aware. Watch yourself. Watch what you're thinking. Watch how you feel. Watch how you respond. Because until you start paying attention, you're not even aware of what's going on around you and in your life and what you're doing and what you are being victim on versus what you are creating and what you have the power to create. So the beginning part is just, and it takes time. I could do it in 30 seconds. I could say it to you, but you need to practice it a little bit and hear it and watch it patiently, right? So we have been something, back to the pharmaceutical industry too. We've been trained for immediate gratification. We can't tolerate pain, right? I have friends who are anesthesiologists and they're saying they're trained to have people get zero pain. We don't have zero pain. Life is pain, right? We always have some ache pain. So you're never going to be zero pain. But if you don't have zero pain, they're giving you a pain pill. Well, it's okay. Like you get a fever, that's doing a job, right? It's killing germs. You don't want to turn a fever down unless it's super, super high, right? So we've been trained for immediate gratification and not to tolerate the challenges of life. But I try to help people understand it's part of life. This is feeling life. So the first part is just helping them walk slowly through it and become aware and be okay with it. Don't judge yourself when you realize that 100 times a day your mouth is chattering. You're an idiot. You're so slow. You're right. It's just what you've done. But once you become aware of it, you can't change what you're not aware of. So first we get aware. And then I talk about each of the hormones, right? So what are those 4 happy hormones? What are they? What do they do in your body? What can you do to optimize the production of them, right? The little things that you can do. So there are those things, they really work, Other people talk about those too, but they don't connect the why, right? It's easier to shift if you understand why you're doing something versus, simply don't do that. Well, now it's a rule. Well, okay. But if you understand why, I don't know, in business, I always found when I would tell people, give people tasks or talk about a project in business, if they understood the context and understood the why, the what falls out. It was always easier to perform a job when you understood the full picture versus here's 4 tasks, I want you to do them. Well, they don't get the context. So what does it mean? So it's harder. They don't do as good a job. So go through each of the hormones, what they are, how they work in your body, and then talk about cortisol as well, which is, again, what's the weeds in your garden, right? So these beautiful flowers of happy hormones, and then you have cortisol that just suffocates it all. And we just living in cortisol, bathing ourselves every day. And then after that, then I talk just broadly about what's your expectations? Again, what's the definition of happiness? Having space for yourself. What happens if you fall off the wagon and you yelled at your kids? Okay. Right. Just, finding judgment. So it's really, it's not what I call a happiness diet. Do these 12 steps and then you'll be happy for life. It's shifting the understanding of how they've operated, not judging it, just shifting their understanding of it, and then helping them to evolve to a different space. So when I had my hives, part of what I had to do was change my eating. Now, if someone said, you can't have sugar again, oh, don't penalize me. But when I understood what sugar was doing to my body and realized how bad I felt after I ate it, it was easy to say, okay, that makes sense now. So it was a lifestyle shift. That's what changes you for the long run. Diets don't work because you starve yourself for a while and then you go, I can't stand this anymore. And you revert to the mean, you revert to what you've done forever. So 21 days, I give them the time to work slowly through it. And then we have community and they can continue to be part of the conversation and, have me involved and engaged with them. And I continue to send like thoughts for the day, like affirmations for the day, or just kind of framers for the day. So it's not a 21 days and done either. They're stuck with me.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to know, like, we're not static beings, like we're forever changing and we're moldable, because even if something hurts you right now, it doesn't mean it's going to hurt forever. And you can also change your pain tolerance, like what, could be a level 8 if you just understand that there are some people that same level 8 is a level 2 to them, but that comes through training. And that offers like a lot of hope to people, because it doesn't mean that you have to stay at that high level of pain. I wanted to ask you something about myself. One of the things I do, and I wanted to know if this is like a good or a bad thing. It might turn around and like hurt me later on, but I have a great ability to just stop thinking about things. When most people like they're wondering, how do I deal with things? I can shut my brain off. Like, is that a bad thing that's going to hit me later on and bring up stuff, or is that okay? Am I okay, or will I have to pay for this later on?
Honestly, I mean, I guess it depends on what it is. If your husband thinks you're icy and cold because
I can be icy and cold, and it's because I shut things off and I don't let things affect me. Where I see other people, they just take things in and then they shut down in a bad way. So
letting things eat. So there's all sorts of different things. Like I mull things over. I think about it. I always joke, when I would write things, I take a lot of showers because you reach writer's block. So then I go take a shower and let ideas come up. Letting things eat at you. No, I think that's a very healthy thing. Right.
Okay.
Because it doesn't do you any good to stew about something. No, it doesn't do you any good to worry about something. How many people worry about the weather? How many people call and go, oh, it's going to snow. You're in Chicago, right? It's going to snow there. Oh no, what are you going to do? I'm in Colorado. Same thing. It's going to snow. Okay. And guess what? It may or may not. I want the job of a weatherman where I can be wrong 95% of the time.
I know, right? And still have a job to show up to.
Yeah, exactly. I want that job. So worry is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Stewing is a waste of time.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah.
So the one thing I would say is be careful not to pull your heart from those around you, because you have to also so depending on what it is, right? Yeah. So if there's someone around you, if there's some upset happened that touched someone around you, it's a fine balance of empathizing, giving them whatever support they need,
Yeah.
the right amount,
Yeah.
not like, and you have young kids and my kids are grown, but they like finding that right amount of support, of caring for them, having them know you're there, but
Yeah.
not chopper momming them, right? That
Yeah.
it's okay for them to have their pain, right? So I would just say, be careful of pulling your heart, like making sure that people know, even though you're not going to stew on it,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you're not caring for them. And what can you do to care, if it's a caregiving thing? If it's just you and something happened at work and you're like, whatever, I can't.
I just don't continue to think about it. So like in the
Right.
moment, I'm an intense person. So
Right.
things affect me, obviously. But like later on, I don't sit there and then
Right.
continuously go over this and over this. And I feel like if people just learn to let things go a little
Right.
bit, it would help them. And just in that moment when I can be by myself and quiet that noise, I find that helps me a lot. And
Yeah.
instead of people just replaying things over and over and over again, I don't
I
think
think
that.
some people that replay things, that's their insecurities talking,
Okay.
because they're afraid that they have embarrassed themselves, let someone down, that it's going to have negative factors. So that's them. So you're a very strong, confident woman who trusts who you are, trusts your judgment. So you're not letting yourself get totally knocked off
Yeah.
because something happened. Right? My
Yeah.
kids are my kids, as I said, I've got two daughters. They give me a lot of feedback. And my running joke to them is that great? I'm perfectly human, right? How wonderful that
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
human, which means that I burned the chicken soup, right? Like,
Yeah.
right. So which is fine. But I think the people that stew on it, that's their perfectionism or their fears or their insecurities that are, just like playing it again. What should I have done? And underneath that is, they're going to get yelled at, they're going to get punished, they're going to get excommunicated.
Yeah.
Something is going to happen to them as a result of whatever they're insecure about.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think this was a very informative conversation, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time. If I'm wanting to hear more, if I want to learn more, if I want to find out more about what you're doing right now, where can I go and follow you? Where can I go and get more information? If I'm interested in the Awakening Happiness program, where can I go to find out more?
Well, okay, and I love this. This is so great. I will come talk to you anytime. You didn't invite me back, but I'm now inviting myself back.
Okay, great.
Um, so the program, so if they go to sarahhiner.com,
Okay.
and that's two H's in the middle and HINER. So sarahhiner.com. And that's the home for the 21-day Awakening Happiness program. So that will give information on the program, where they can buy the program. It gives a little bit of my bio, et cetera. I foresee, so this program, just real quickly, I've actually been working on it for about 5 years. I'd had a book proposal on it, which got accepted right at the time that we sold the company. So I didn't pursue the book. And then I had it in a very small, abbreviated way on an app, a friend that had an app, a self-healing app. And now I've just relaunched it in this larger way. And again, each day, just to be clear, each day, because we're all busy, is a 15-minute video. It's not an hour, it's not 2 hours, it's not, and I'm doing it not live, but video, so that people can do it at their convenience. So 15 minutes a day, there's 5 minutes of a journaling exercise, again, just for self-reflection, not a novella, just a real quickie thing. So that's where they can find out about that program. I foresee additional related programs, how to deal with your kids, your parents, your bosses, like, because we all in those little slices get hooked by it. So that's sarahhiner.com. On Facebook, I have a group, which I may shift over to the platform where the sarahhiner.com is. But right now there's an Awakening Happiness with Sarah Hiner group. They can come join that. And I post in there regularly, and then there are people in there, so that there's community already in that. And that's the main place I post. I used to blog, but I stopped through Bottom Line. They can, if they want to see more of my writings, they go to bottomlineinc.com, or my blogs and stuff. I've paused that for a while, because there are a million bloggers out there and they all have a lot of great stuff to say. And honestly, I just felt like it was way too crowded, and I wasn't able to, I don't like just spewing stuff out there. I'd rather
I
be
totally agree with that. And that's just
something
good that
actionable.
you say that and acknowledge that. But I think, you know, people should also know this about you, Sarah, is that you've always been ahead of your time. And like you've been in this industry for a lot longer. And I think I just respect that a lot about you. So I think your depth of knowledge and, you know, just your experience in this field and this arena is incredibly important. And so we value what you had to share with us today. And I would encourage everyone to like just go and find out more. I think what we started talking about today doesn't get spoken about enough. Like, this is your body, this is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Know about it, know thyself, and just advocate, be an advocate for yourself,
Yeah,
because no one should know yourself better than you. And
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to message me, they can. Also, let me say, any of your listeners and watchers, if I put a code up onto Awakening Happiness, if they do a promo code of Sabrina 20, you'll
okay,
get
great.
20% off on the program.
Okay, awesome.
So I think it doesn't matter upper or lower, just Sabrina 20.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We want you to get better. And that's the whole point. Make sure that you're a leader and make sure that first and foremost, you're leading your life. And Sarah, thank you today for your expertise.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure and honor.